As news with the most relevant and important information. A delegated prosecutor before the Supreme Court of Justice requested a hearing from the formulation of the indictment and a measure of house arrest against the governor of San Andres and Providence, Everett Julio Hawkins Shogreen.
The decision will be taken due to possible irregularities in contracting during the COVID-19 health emergency. The evidentiary material collected by the prosecutor's office showed that between April 2nd and May 29th, 2020, Hawkins Shogreen signed 16 service provision contracts for a value of $240,551,122 pesos, with the beneficiaries being natural persons who will be in charge of supporting the management of the Secretariat of Tourism. They should be completed within 7 months. The contracts will be aimed at carrying out tourist inspection activities and updating information about the island to be disseminated to visitors, as well as nursing assistance, among many others. According to the investigation, these contracts could not be signed because at the time a national decree prevented recreational activities in places such as beaches and tourist sites to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The prosecutor's office evidenced that during the process that culminated with the question form, the adequate previous studies were not carried out, nor were the needs of the population contemplated within the framework of the pandemic. Another irregularity was related to the apparent existence of failures in the supervision of the execution of the contract, since the payments were apparently made without the contracted activities having been executed. The prosecutor's office will charge Everett Hawkins Shogreen as allegedly responsible for the crimes of contract without compliance with legal requirements and embezzlement by appropriation in favor of third parties.
Regarding the press release issued by the Attorney General's office announcing that Governor Everett Hawkins would be charged for possible contracting irregularities during COVID-19 pandemic, these are the full statements of the governor.
They've just sent me a Twitter from the prosecutor's office, a statement where they say that they are going to request a hearing to impose charges and to give me a detention order, house arrest for some contracts that were celebrated in the middle of the COVID pandemic, which the prosecutor's office claims they are services contracts for 240 million pesos. I want to tell the investigator that has always been ready to present me to all the hearings and requirements that have been done to me. I really have not been able to work in a peaceful way because I have been the victim of persecution in my own archipelago by people who still do not accept that I have won the governorship fairly. If I had been investing amounts and rivers of money, I would certainly be in office seeking to recover it, but it was not like that. I am trying to work for my archipelago, to work to do the things right, to do what has not happened in years. I regret that San Andres is like other departments that have been pointed out for corruption. I feel persecuted by the prosecutor's office because a situation like this is easily explained. If there are issues where there are many suspicion for hiring people in the middle of the COVID pandemic, especially when in San Andres had a large number of tourists that were here always aware of on the reaches and the hire nurses to counteract COVID, well, then I should have the right to explain, but there is no right that the only option is to persecute the governor of San Andres and seek by all means to remove him by office by force. I am also surprised that they are notifying the accused first, which is what the prosecutor's office should do publicly. Instead, people who are publicly declared in San Andres and Old Providence as my enemies already had that notification in their hands before it was published on the Twitter of the prosecutor's office. I still trust in justice. That is why my lawyer, Dr. Ivan Cancino, is with me, with whom I hope will continue representing me before instance or entity of the state, because I have been respectful and have endured a lot. Even that same image that my enemies are trying to portray of me, those who have been in power for 20 or 30 years stealing from San Andres, I have several questions to ask the prosecutor's office. Number one, what happened with the tropical park, where more than 15,000 million pesos were lost in front of everyone? Absolutely everything, that there is not one single person arrested. What happened with the Equestrian Center, where a large part of the resources were also used and absolutely nothing was built, as well as the mega schools and other works that were left unfinished, where not one person has been arrested. Last time, for 500 million pesos, where I did not deliver any advance payment, they unjustly kept me in my house for 7 months, so that later a magistrate had to establish that in these cases the presumption of innocence is important, and it is what should prevail, and it is in the Inter-American Charter of Human Rights. This is a principle that Colombia is constantly violating, and it should not be like that. We should be able to explain ourselves, but no, they prefer to imprison a human being so that later he can explain himself, and after that he can be free. San Andres does not deserve that. We won these elections fairly. We will continue fighting for our innocence. It has caused us a lot. It has been a very complex issue, but here we are showing our face, and all those negative messages that have come out in San Andres in the middle of the reconstruction, in the middle of so many things in which the department had nothing to do. I had nothing to do directly with the reconstruction in terms of the management of resources, but I'm working institutionally to help all Providence to move forward and rebuild their houses, as well as many things that have happened there that have not passed through the governor's office. I want to issue this public statement because I really feel persecuted. Corruption is not in the archipelago. I regret that for years it has been like this, and that it is easier to get into San Andres because of accusations from many enemies who sometimes with gossip they turn everything into truth, and sometimes with officials who do not stop to think about the damage they can do to a human being and his family. I am an innocent person. I am going to prove it. Just as in the COVID pandemic we made those contracts, we have the right to explain why. Just as they did not let us explain the famous contracting in the middle of COVID to counteract all the effects, the publicity and promotion, communication of strategies to be able to do it in the Creole language, which was what the ministry told us we had to do. And once we did it, all these things came out. I continue trusting in justice. I continue trusting that there are officials who believe in the presumption of innocence, but it is really very sad and regrettable that 2 years later, today they are again pointing to the head of the governor of San Andres to seek results in terms of corruption.
After dialogue with the departmental government, the blockade that the taxi drivers set up this afternoon ended after expressing their dissatisfaction with the non-fulfillment of the vans.
For several hours, taxi drivers blocked the entrance to the Gustavo Rojas Pinilla Airport after considering that they were being violated by the entry of vans. By means of a document, they signed an agreement with the departmental government and lifted the blockade.
We've been at the airport for more than 50 years. We are 300 families who have been working for 50 years, only to have a person who we do not know where he's from coming and invading and taking our jobs away from us.
The Secretary of Mobility, Luis Viloria, spoke about the government's intervention after the blockade imposed by the Taxi Drivers Union.
A record was drawn up with the Taxi Association, but I want to make it clear the position of the departmental administration that since the resolution of 1995, the service has always been with the Taxi Association. It is a very old association that has always provided the service, and a conflict has arisen because the van-type vehicles want to provide the service as well.
It is to be noted that the group will attempt to send a letter to President Gustavo Petro asking him to intervene on what they consider to be a recurrent problem.
Pay close attention if you are looking for a job opportunity. Tomorrow, September 1st, there will be held a meeting for employment in the facilities of the regional SENA San Andres.
The Public Employment Agency will hold this September 1st and 2nd a micro-job fair interview aimed at those who wish to work on tourist boats. Applicants for the positions offered must meet the requirement of being bilingual.
The companies come to San Andres to look for people with experience in serving tables and bars, kitchen assistants, cooks, all these types of positions. Tomorrow from 2:30 to 5 p.m., we will be attending to all those interested in the process so that they can have all the information they need. This will be tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday also from 2:30 to 5 p.m. They can come at that time. It is important that tomorrow you bring your resume in Spanish or English with its respective references. Here you will be given a previous orientation, and we invite all interested people in San Andres to participate tomorrow.
The micro-job fair will be held at the facilities of the regional SENA San Andres in the offices of the Public Employment Agency.
And this afternoon, an analysis of the tax reform was held. This event was led by the Chamber of Commerce, Pro Archipelago, and the House Representative Elizabeth J. Pan, who seeks to make known to the community through experts about what the tax reform consists of and how it could benefit or affect the archipelago.
Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a training session was held where experts explained what each points of the tax reform proposed by the government consisted of. The Chamber of Commerce explains the importance of this activity.
We have a public-private alliance with the Academy. We have joined Pro Archipelago, the Chamber of Representatives, in particular House Representative Elizabeth J. Pan, and we have the participation of an academic. So we are making a pedagogical workshop focused on knowing in depth each of the sections of the tax reform, which is an issue of great importance both for entrepreneurs, pensioners, or anyone who receives dividends.
House Representative Elizabeth J. Pan, advisor, refers that when analyzing the tax reform, it is possible to have clarity regarding the aspects that could affect the department, since the economy of the islands depends on it, and at the same time, this could benefit and provide opportunities.
Today in the Congress of the Republic, the project of the tax reform is being debated, and for House Representative Elizabeth J. Pan and for all the traders and the guilds, it is important to know what are the threats that this reform represents. Above all, to know what are all the opportunities that exist within it.
For his part, trader Luis Fernando Cañón gives his point of view on this issue that is so important for the economy of all the islanders.
It is excellent. I come here even though I have heard it twice. It is a very important topic. It is a worrying topic. It is a topic that we should all be interested in. Here are people who are not interested in it because today they do not pay tax, and with the reform they will not have to pay tax. However, it seems to me that with this reform we are all going to have to pay, especially those of us who are natural persons.
And now we continue with news of the municipality of Old Providence and Santa Catalina with Millicent O'Neill.
Good evening to all our viewers. This is the most relevant information from Old Providence and Catalina. With a march through the commercial sector today, the teachers' strike began. This manifestation is being carried out to seek improvement in their health service.
With chants and banners, the teachers of the municipality took to the streets to demand better health service. Although payment is deduced monthly from their salaries, they do not have a correct access to the service.
We don't have an office to go to look nothing. We have remission that is here more than 4 months and our teacher can't go out. We without health, we can't work. So we exacting the president of Unión Temporal, Secretaría de Educación, and all who have to do with it to be here by Friday. And if not, we we going to continue on.
We go doctor, we no get tend to. When you go the doctor, them not working, or simply when you go you can't get the medicine them what you need. If you have remission, you can't carry the remission shoe. It pass weeks, months before you can get any answer. You call Union Temporal San Andres and there is a phone where no one answer no time.
This strike that is being carried out in the entire educational sector of the municipality may become indefinite if there is no response.
Well, we don't have none kind of doctor service. Every time we go hospital is one problem because you don't got no authorization. Without authorization, they can't get tend to. And I feel like we they pay monthly straight for with doctor service, and that go have to be no problem when we go anywhere so we can get attended to for service.
The teachers demand the presence of the president of the Unión Temporal del Norte healthcare provider, representative of the Secretariat of Education, among other entities that have to do with the healthcare service for teachers.
And in other news, Sergio Alberto Archibald expressed before the cameras his unfair situation. Since before the hurricane, he had an apartment where he lived which suffered damages. However, he was left out of the reconstruction.
Alberto Archibald feels like a zero or a nobody because he says that even though he had an apartment with bathroom and kitchen in which he lived before the hurricane, he was left without housing repair and he had to assemble what he lives in today on his own.
I passed my hurricane here in an apartment here with my family then. All right, when it comes hurricane, go in my house stop and I pass it and I go and I say something, I go and I put it back on until now they say, then give me a number and I don't say what is the number yet. So I need to know why they put me out of the list.
The builder lost everything he had inside the apartment, his stove, his refrigerator, and so far he has not received any kind of help, a situation that makes him disgusted.
Yes, I was living here. My brother used to give me the ground to my house. I built my house myself and I put my top on the hurricane gun with it. The window I mash it up, right? The leaky what I do is for me won't know. Because your sister will consent right now to going to the community place, more or less. At least to the alcalde, the major.
The neighbors confirm that Archibald Brock had his apartment and see it as unfair that others have received and he has not.
He had a house. He had a house with a window and everything. But after the hurricane, the top blew off and well, I don't know, some of the window them be gone too and everything. And he was fighting with them for them to give him back and they wouldn't give him. So he had to also go and put back on the top himself because then he never get no help.
Archibald claims that although he was given a FID number, it was taken away. And although local authorities know about his case, he has been left without housing repair.
This is all we have for tonight for this section of Old Providence and Ketlina. Continue in San Andres, Lisa, with more Teleislas news. Good night.
Thank you, Millie. With news of the municipality, we reach to the end of our broadcast. We see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. with more Teleislas news. Good night.